everybody heard that? I'll probably have to... Yes? Cool. Yeah, so, hi, I'm Stijn. This is not rocket science. We are here to finally show a bit of ourselves again after a long period of silence. We have been showing some of our progress on Instagram and Twitter and talking directly to people. For the people already on the waiting list, we have now shipped number 25 and we have constructed up to about 50, but we're still waiting for some minor parts to arrive before we can finish all those, the 25 to 50 and then send them out. And the next month we'll be building 50 to 100. Some of the people watching will have their tracking numbers and soon they'll get their Fenix V. This is what they can expect. We have made some changes in this one. This is still my old crummy beta unit. Some stuff doesn't really work because we've been hacking about on it and well, screws will fall off, nuts will fall off, some jacks have been abused just to make sure that the final ones are solid. But this is the one I get to use while preparing all the nice ones to send out for everybody else. We had a bunch of questions beforehand and I'm going to answer those soon. Before I do that, I will ask everybody to just come up with their greatest questions and things in the chat. Just throw them in the chat, and somebody else in the room here, like Priscilla, who is just reading the manual to you at the beginning to test the audio, will tell me these questions, and either I'll just directly answer them, or if it involves making some noise on the Fenix, I will make a noise on the Fenix, and hopefully that answer it that way. Do you have a question for me, Priscilla?
We already had one that was about what is the Noisebox.
The Noisebox. Yay, the Noisebox. I'm not going to read the manual. Priscilla reads manuals. I will just show the thing on the thing. The Noisebox is over here. The Fenix is of course a complete modular system, and no modular system is complete without noise. On a technical spec sheet type answer, we have the classical white noise and pink noise and things. Let me see if I can give you some of those. I plug into white noise. I have a whole envelope and arpeggiator set up. So if I press on my tiny MIDI keyboard here, I can let you hear something. If I didn't do this, I would have noise all the time and it wouldn't be easy to talk over. So I trigger it via here. Some white noise. Then we have these two noise filters in here, the pink filter and the blue filter. Like if you take white noise and you filter it, then you can make a more sort of neutral sounding. Like it sounds equal loudness with pink noise. That every frequency feels like it's about the same amount of presence. So it's give you this very subtle difference compared to the white. And if you do the same filtering twice, you go beyond pink, you go into brown noise here. And back to white. So it goes darker. And in reverse, if you want to make it sound more bright, you can go into the blue filter direction. So we have the white noise again as reference. Go slightly up with blue. And as you can already hear, a rhythmically applied, more higher pitch noise gives you almost instant hi-hat. So with a bit of change in the envelope, you can make nice rhythmic tracks.
Can we do like a crossfade between those? How does it sound like?
A crossfade? Is it the user question or is it your question? Oh, Laudi, from the room itself, we get a crossfaded question. How can we set up a proper crossfade here? I'll just do 2 VCAs and 1 master VCA, otherwise it gets deafening. And a multiple. We go into multiple. So I sent 1 noise Wait. No, I'll just send two different noises straight to a VCA. Which ones do you want, Cloudy? White and blue or blue and pink?
Blue and brown.
Blue and brown.
Blue and brown.
Okay.
3 blue, 1 brown.
Yeah, but I only have 2 blue, 1 brown.
Mm.
Which gets you 2 purple and brown. So there. And then I set up the other noise VCA to a different audio channel. Fenix has 2 separate mixer channels with individual panning and level. I'm going to use it's triple LFO now because you can set up out of phase signals. Not sure if this will be visible in the stream or not.
Oh, Bert's also here. Hey, Bert.
Bert from Muiden, Bert.
Yep.
Hello, Bert. Yeah. So what this is those 2 noises, the blue noise and the brown noise, crossfading using 2 VCAs and 2 outputs from the triple LFO. Make that a bit faster. It is classically used to sample a piece of noise and then sort of do the computer blips by controlling a highly resonant filter maybe. You can set this up too. I'll remove these noises again, make some room on the machine so things remain slightly legible. Let's get rid of all these other patch cables, do not confuse. So, what I have remaining here is 1 VCA into 1 mixer channel. And now I'm going to use a SVF filter. I need to set up my tiny keyboard, trigger an envelope to open up the VCA. Yeah. It's very silent right now because, of course, a filter by itself doesn't. Whoa, something dropped. Never mind. A filter by itself doesn't do very much unless you really resonate. Ooh, it's resonating all right. So now we have the filter resonating nicely into the sine wave, and I'm going to apply the sample and hold output to the cutoff. Right now, the moment when the sample and hold is sampling is determined by the rest of the noise box, which we'll discuss later. But this is a bit confusing to begin with, so I'm going to just trigger it every time I press a key. And if I press a key, you can see on the CV gate interface here that the LEDs blink. So I'm going to use one of those. And if I do that based on an arpeggiator, you get
Faster.
I don't have tempo control right now. It's on the sequencer clock.
Okay.
Priscilla wants it to go faster, but not today.
Chat wants it.
But yeah, so the sample and hold can do those kind of things. You can also, instead of feeding it noise, it's now sampling noise, of course. You can also sample something else, like an LFO. If I would, before I do the sample and hold an LFO, I'll let you hear what it sounds like if I do not sample and hold it. So this is just an LFO to the cutoff. Right now, it's a bit faster. It's a really very large range. Okay, I can also use the modulation input to control the range a bit. Now if I do the sample and hold thing, I give it to the input of the sample and hold, and then I do that to the mod. I put the LFO slower. It makes a whole staircasing out of the. It makes a whole staircase out of the LFO by using the arpeggiator to sample in rhythmic intervals into the modulation input of the SVF filter. So these are still the classic building blocks of noise. So on most complete modular systems, you'll find something like this. Sample hold classic, white noise classic. The pink and the blue noises are slightly less common, but then they are there. But now we get to the other half of the noise box, which is the really new bit for the Fenix. Because while developing our new version of the Fenix from where it was in the Fenix II, we really wanted to take a look at every component and see what had changed in the world since the older Fenixes were made. And one of the things that's really ubiquitously available these days is computer power and mathematics and statistics. And these days we can just, if we want to make a noise, we can predetermine what kind of noise distribution we want to have. Would we like it to be a standard bell curve, or do we want it to be a beta curve, or a flat distribution, or a quantized distribution? So we made this noise box to be a sort of reverse statistics engine where you tell it what kind of response you want it to have. And you can do this in two ways. You can do this in time steps, like almost a Geiger counter, where you can have very regular random events, or you can have events that are either one step apart or two steps apart, and it's just a dice roll if it's one or two. Or you can make every interval length completely Gaussian, almost random noisy, that you don't really know if it's going to happen 5 seconds from now or a millisecond from now, but it's going to happen. And all of those parameters you can control here. And we do the same for the value that it does. So every time step that an event happens, so the Geiger counter goes bip, it also determines the pitch of the bip by the same kind of distribution. And these two combined allow you to make very complex natural sounding systems, because in nature everything follows, well, every tree or wave you hear follows a certain pattern that makes you know that it actually is a wave or a tree or a gust of wind or whatever. So I'm just going to build something and let you hear this. Let's see, where were we? We have now the sample and hold noise. Instead of the sample and hold noise, I'm going to use the same modulation input, but this time I'm going to take the value output from the noise box. It's almost like an internal sample and hold, but now it holds the value determined by its own statistics engine. Let's see what we can do here. Now, if we change the rate, it will go faster and slower. I'm still triggering it. Let's change that too. I'm going to make the Noisebox do the triggering for me. I take out my keyboard interface. I'm going to give all the control to the Fenix itself. It's always slightly scary when you do things live, but we'll see. You can always turn the volume down. There is a trigger output on the Noisebox. So I give the trigger to the envelope. Time distribution is now completely flat. It's going extremely rhythmical. But to change it to something else. So now it loses coherence. All of this it still does within a time step length that's very close to the rate, because we came up with a secondary mechanism to change the speed at which the rate changes. I will have to refer people to the manual because there's a gigantic explanation. I can only do a short summary here. There's let's put it down for a second. I was looking at making noise. I was sitting somewhere on a beach and listening to all kinds of different noise systems while trying to write down what to do with this. And I came up with 3 base classes of how I think noisy systems evolved. And it's way too simple, but it's a useful approximation to actually be creative with, I think. I came up with three main classifications. The first one being an avalanche. We have a tiny event at the beginning, and this avalanche is kind of snowball and rolls down and down and down and down. And it grows bigger and bigger and bigger and noisier and faster and more things happening until it comes to a sudden stop, bam, against the wall, and everything's over. So that's the avalanche pattern. Catastrophe, yes. Then the other end of the scale is the earthquake, where you have this massive seismic event from nowhere, gigantic thing happening, and then you get all these aftershocks, smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller until nothing happens. So you have lots of tiny events happening early on, lots of big events happening early on, and then they're sort of getting further and further apart, and they're getting less and less intense over time. So that's the earthquake version of the noisy events. And then in the middle of that is the thing that happens with a gust of wind in a tree, where there's a tree, it's at rest, air starts moving, so the amount of noisy things happening in the branches is growing and growing, and then the air passes over, and then the tree stops moving about, and it dies off again. So you have this, if you describe this as an envelope, you have an envelope with release only, you have an envelope with a long attack and a long release, or you have an envelope with attack only and then falls off into a cliff. So those 3 rates differences are now part of the Noisebox to change the rate, and that's under the probability knob, the continuity knob, and the space knob. I really wanted to have time-space continuum on the front panel, so that it's not so logical, but you'll have to grant me this one. I will enable it again, and I'll change the dynamics of how it evolves over time. If you have a Fenix in front of you, you can also go to the menu page of the Noisebox, and it will actually show you the graph of how the noise probability evolves over time. And if you do things with the knobs, it happens on screen, but it's a bit too far from the camera to show you live. Let's go.
So space, the knob space, the idea of space goes from seismic through wind into avalanche.
Yes.
In those 3 different kinds.
Yes.
Okay.
Shall we do all 3?
Yep. probability doing now on that space?
The probability is now sometimes making the rate faster based on this secondary envelope shape. If it's in the center, it does nothing. If it's to the left, it would make it sometimes slower. So
Sometimes slower.
based on the envelope structure that I've just... Again, the exact details, the manual, I'm just going to show what it can do right now. But sometimes now you can hear it burst. It goes from very sort of gradually, sometimes something, to in burst of stuff. Quiet. Burst a bit and it goes quiet again. Burst again. Now space to the middle. This should be more gradual, going from more events to slower events almost. And it's going up again. So you can add very intricate chaos patterns this way. You have a lot of control. Oh, there's another question.
There's a request here. You could try using a saw, going into the filter, and use the noise to change the filter cutoff.
Yes.
As well as the pitch.
Yes.
Is that something?
I can build that if people want to see this.
Yeah.
So a saw going into... Let's make a new thing. So this, yeah, if there's more requests for the noise, we can also look into the noise. I think Making Sound Machines wanted me to show a bit more of noise. We can come back to it later. So now we are going to do a sawtooth with noise to the pitch.
A saw going into the filter and using the noise to change the filter cutoff.
Okay, so first I'm going to use filter to output. It's still very resonant, so I turn the resonance down. There we go. Then we go from, it's an SVF filter with multiple inputs this case. I go from the sawtooth to the low pass to output. So if I open the filter, it's a bit louder. Have a filter. Now noise into the cutoff. Which noise shall I use?
Purple.
Purple noise. Purple noise into modulation of the filter. Okay, and then also the pitch, you said?
Yeah.
The pitch of the sawtooth. Take a brown noise now. Noise on pitch is, of course, that eventually you'll end up with just more noise. But the noisy filters are really, really cool. So I can go one step more indirect and filter the noise going to the filter modulation first. So let's do that.
Okay.
Take the noisiness from there first, and I'm going to use a ladder filter for that. So brown noise to ladder filter. 24 dB to modulation. So, yeah, I hope that satisfies that request. Were there any other requests meanwhile?
Yeah, there was one question. How close in sound are the analog parts that come from or are inspired by the Fenix II in the Fenix IV?
Incredibly close.
So
They are circuit identical.
yeah, so we don't have the Fenix II next to it, but can you let us hear?
I can't tell you how close it is by letting you hear something. Is there more request? Is there any more specific? I can let you hear what we made of the phaser, because the phaser is the same phaser.
Mm-hmm.
It's squeezed down in a tiny area, but it's still the same phaser. So let's see what it does here. I take Sawtooth. And what else shall we take? Well, this is just do the phaser for now. That's the analog phaser, together with the very Fenix II thing, the triple pulse output.
It's in a Chord Oscillator with LFO on the subphase.
LFO on the subphase.
Yes.
Okay.
Same oscillator.
Okay, so let's take a mixer first. Sub oscillator 1 goes into mixer channel B. Then we take the outputs. It goes back to the phaser input, however now. Also requested an LFO on the subphase input.
This is a very Fenix II oscillator feature.
Okay, there we go. those are apparently very Fenix II sounds. Yay! Are there any more requests for you?
Simple analog oscillators into analog filters.
Simple analog. Well, yeah, we already had.
You sort of did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Unless there's more requests for that, because we have more analog filters and we have more analog oscillators. One not Fenix II analog oscillator is the Chord Oscillator. We have a new triple analog oscillator, the Chord Oscillator here. It's 3 Curtis oscillators with a digital chord control, and it can come in very useful. So let's give that one a filter and an envelope structure and an arpeggiator, because I have this tiny thing here. Let me make it go beep. Let's see, comes out the top one. So let's give that to a gate, and I have a pitch for the chord oscillator, and then we give the chord oscillator to the ladder filter. That's also from the Fenix II. I'm using the triple Sawtooth output now. That's the input one. Then we go from there with the 24 dB output to a VCA. Or actually, let's go to the input module, because we have hidden a tiny distortion in there. It has a hard clipper module. Do I have more yellow cables? Here's more yellow cable. So, yes. And this one. And that to the master. Patch.
People really love the phaser patch. Thank you very much.
Excellent. AHSRD is also from the Fenix II. It's not really a sound, but it's a odd, well, not so common ADSR structure or envelope structure. It has ADSR like you're used to, but it has an extra H in there to give you a bit more punch between the attack and the decay time. And it has a secondary /D decay envelope, which Bert originally came up with because it's really handy with filter envelopes, because you mostly just want a decay and not really anything else if you want to make natural sounds. We agreed with him, so we kept it in, and it's great. There we are. Chord oscillator going through a ladder filter. Let's hear the ladder filter first. The ladder filter has a bit of the decay envelope on it that I just mentioned. And now the chord oscillator is in saw stack mode, which means you can do all the classic large stadium trend style saw combinations. If I open up the chords, you can hear it. And in this particular mode, it cycles through 4 different ways of incrementally detuning your stack. So let's put it into a more classic chord now. That's a more classic major chord. We also still have the distortion going on from the hard clipper.
chords?
No, these are not the Guru chords, but you can make those because any chord it plays, you can just manually add it. On the screen you can see all the chords that you're going through and see exactly how they interpolate. You can select if they should slide between them or if they should jump between them. There's a lot of, well, adjust it to your liking, but right now I'm just showing factory default because that's what everybody gets when they open up the box. So
Okay.
that's yeah. So we have the chord oscillator. It can do chords. It can do saw stacks. It can also do chip tunes, which is taking the same chords, but it does. So that's, yeah, another analog oscillator going through another analog filter with some analog clipping. Anything else on the list?
The wave multiplier.
Yes.
So what is up with that?
Actually, the wave shaper.
The wave shaper or the wave multiplier?
Both.
Both of them. Again, a Fenix 2 thing. The wave multiplier is a Fenix 2 device. It's I think it's mostly an invention by Bert. It's he saw something that he wanted to sort of recreate and then went left like he sometimes does, and it became this beautiful thing. Let's do the Wavefolder first because it's a bit easier and you can just patch it into the current sound, and then I'll do something else with the wave multiplier. So let's put the chord oscillator back to the saw stack. That's easier sound. And now instead of the input module, because the input module is now being used as a distortion, I'm just going to put in the Wavefolder. Let's not mix up my inputs and outputs. This one goes to in, and the other one comes from the out there. Maybe with too abstract sample, I'll make it a bit more clear. I'll take out the filter. Let's start this with a sine oscillator. Level down. It's not incredibly loud yet, so let's boost this a bit. It's very hard to know what's going on without actually looking at a scope. We have a built-in oscilloscope as well. You can just hook it up and look at the signals. But if you have a sine wave and it goes over a certain level, it folds over. And then if you boost the signal again and it goes all the way down, it goes below a certain level, it folds over again and again, 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 and again. And I think we fold it 6 times. Oh, there's an image in the manual. Give me the image. Not sure where I have to put this so it becomes visible. This is about. Can you look on the screen there?
Yeah. Come here. There. Explain.
So yeah, if the louder the input signal gets, the more folded it gets. But it's somewhere a sort of metallic type of clipping distortion. So I'm feeding it a pure sine wave now, and the more I boost the level, the more folds it gets, and the more overtones it gets. So here's the sine wave. There it gets the first extras, and if I go further, starts getting this metallic edge to it, and this is very much a sort of a nice way to get extra harmonics without distorting really, because it's always harmonic to the input signal. So it's it's just sort of an anti-filter. It makes harmonics instead of removes harmonics.
To the wave multiplier.
To the wave multiplier. Unless Claudia wants me to add anything, I see Ida.
CV, but yeah.
Yeah, I can use CV. You can automate all the things that I just did, and you can even add the bias level, which makes it slightly different by changing the level at which it clips, so it has more sonic range than this. But let's go to the wave multiplier, because it's such an oddball device. Wavefolders are everywhere. Wave multipliers are pretty much on Fenixes, as far as I'm aware. Let's see. Where shall I start with this? Let's explain it first. The wave multiplier has 4 steps, A, B, C, and D. And they each have a level, and it's a bipolar level. And you can make it step through the inputs and use the levels to set the volume of what that input produces. And for some odd reason, the A and C inputs are linked to the B and D inputs. You can't really feed them separately. But this also makes more interesting to actually use, because most of the time you want these signals to be coherent, but it's you'll have to play with it to really get to grips with the how that is. Hard to explain. You'll have to feel it and play with it, or read the manual. But let's hook it up. I have output here. It goes to let's make it go to something that I can turn off to begin with. So the same MIDI envelope. Not hearing anything yet because we're not clocking the wave multiplier. Let's clock this by a sub oscillator. So I'm using, you can see on there, maybe the light turns on. It's clocked. Without any inputs, these 4 knobs will just be 4 levels. So you can use like a very simple 4-step custom waveform drawing tool. And because it's clocked by the oscillator now, I can also just pitch it here. Or indeed play the CV from the oscillator. I'm still playing it with MIDI. So we are now playing the wave multiplier as an oscillator. There's a bunch of clocking options on how to actually treat the clocking. There's some switches here. And then there's a delay knob that sort of gives you an extra pause between each cycle. I'm not going into it right now. But now I'm going to feed it to inputs. First I'm going to make an input without going through the wave multiplier, so you can hear what I'm feeding in. I'm taking a mixer straight to the output, and then I'm giving it a chord, because we've already done a chord, there's nothing new there. Sound number 1. Sound number 1, I put in A and C. And now listen to what this thing does. Oh. Now one thing is happening already. I'm not pitching chord oscillator the same way as I pitch the other oscillator. So let's use a multiple and pitch that out, or split that out. 1 here, 1 there. And 1 there. Chord osc and the Fenix oscillator from Sawtooth. So now I'm setting the wave multiplier entirely to the. Oh, I can continue for a while, but I do want my beer. I think we've hit beer o'clock. Yes.
Okay.
This is where the stream gets interesting.
Alright. Do you want to do it? Alright.
So now now it's switching between its own two levels and the Sawtooth oscillator. A and C are the Sawtooth chord oscillator, and B and D are just itself. Now I'm going to connect something else to B and D, namely this sine wave from the original oscillator. Let's see what happens then. Cheers. Cheers, internet. So I've now taken two relatively simple waveforms and blended them and chopped them and recombined them using the wave multiplier, which sort of, after every wave cycle, switches to a different wave cycle. Oh, there were more waving and cheersing happening.
Cheers!
Cheers, Loudy!
Cheers.
Yay! How are we doing on questions? Are people completely...
Somebody
Look at them.
never thought of to try the wave multi with only the clock in.
Ah,
So that's a new thing.
Is that
New
the-
things are happening.
new things are
And
happening.
people are cheersing. Skål!
Woo!
Proost!
Proost!
Cheers!
Na zdrowiem, or something.
Eggy shakadre.
Eggy shakadre.
Bert is saying control the delay time with a sequencer CV.
Control the delay time with the sequencer CV. Yeah, that we can do. Yeah.
Tim saying proost.
Yeah. Proost, Tim! Sequence. Wait. Is it running? No. Well, I have to give the clock. You don't have to give it the clock on the production Phoenixes, but I burned mine out while testing, so it happens.
Slash! Yes.
What? So, for extra clarity, I'm not playing a melody right now. The sequencer is changing the delay knob, and that is causing the melody to happen. So as you can see, we can create some really complicated waveforms and weird sounds with this thing, with barely any patch cables yet. So
It sounds as if there is a little Aphex twin trapped inside. It's a very thin Aphex twin.
very thin, yeah, very compact.
Very thin. So I was having some questions about the sequencer.
Aha!
Is that an 8-step sequencer we see?
It is, yes,
It
it is an 8-step sequencer we see.
What are all these knobs and jacks?
Ah, I'm glad you asked.
Aren't you?
Yes. Let's set up a simple noise first so I can play some tiny melodies. And then also finally patch in some digital reverberation goodness, because a dry sound is only very dry. Okay, I'm going to use a standard ADSR for once, and I'm going to trigger it from the sequencer. Let's see, I have a nice short cable here. Just in case people are wondering, we deliver the Fenix with a whole bunch of matching patch cables, 43 patch cables included. A bunch of people were confused during the mailing, so you get tons of cables to play with.
You can order extra.
You can order extra, but you get 43 to start with. What do we have here? Okay, I have a ADSR, it's being triggered by the sequencer. We don't hear anything because there's no audio going to the VCA. Let's change that. I'm going to give it a Sawtooth. Okay. I'm also going to do something weird. Just instead of clocking it with a nice clock, I'm going to clock it with an LFO because then I can reach the knob easier from here. As you can hear, it can go quite fast, but we're still not actually sequencing anything with it. Let's change that too. So now we have a basic sequence running. First step is higher pitch, the rest is just set bass level. The first the row of buttons is the on and off for each step. We have two buttons here that you can press and you get combinations. If you press both of them at the same time and then a third here, you can change the sequence length. But I promised everybody some reverberation, so let's do that. And now for the other two, the other function of these two buttons, if I don't press them together to change the length, I can also make double steps or long steps.
What are you doing now?
I am making double steps.
You're making double steps. Okay. Make them long.
Some of them are long. So those are the most of the service features of the sequencer. Now all these jacks, the top area of the jacks are things to control the clock and to get maybe a glide output for all the long notes, so you can make 303 style slides. You can also have gates to do a single run, so it only goes through it once when you press a button and then stops. That's all handled here. Also resetting behavior, if you want to sync it up with other clocks, you can also do that here. But this is the main area where, again, we inherited a whole bunch of functionality from the Fenix II, not circuit-wise, but functionality-wise. These blue gates gate jacks, are inputs and outputs for steps. If I want to make something happen only on step 1, I can take a patch cable and take it from gate 1. So now the sequencer is still going on, but it's only triggering from gate 1. And if I want to make it respond to gate 1 and 3, I can daisy chain these. And I still have all the other gates to do something else with. So let's do that. Let's change this one to make a chord oscillator. New VCA. Let's build something. Distort a triangle here. Okay. Yes, they can. Almost all of them, actually. All the knobs you see here have a CV input down here, so you can CV control them. There's some things in the reverb that are well, mostly that we've added in our software sprint near the end, that we sort of had the bonus features. The bonus features are not CV controllable, but the knobs are. And in this case, there's high frequency damping, low frequency damping, modulation, sort of swirliness speed and swirliness intensity, sort of built in chorus, and an amount of shimmer. And those are all CV controllable. And then there's also a freeze button, that's reverb freeze, that sort of keeps on echoing with what you last heard. And that has a gate input, so you can also sequence that or just play it live or do something else. It's also a push button. I hope that one, yeah, I can push it, but you can't really hear it in the sound.
Tim was asking about latching steps in a sequencer. Is that the same word for what you're doing, or is that something else?
You can latch them with the long. If you set them to long, it's essentially you're sort of chaining them together, but it's only real latching if you then have the same pitch. So then they just extend into the next note.
Okay.
And if you have a different note and you can combine it with this slew limiter to make 303 style glides, we can do that too. But yeah, this was still the sequencer example. As you can hear, I now have the bass drum triggering on different steps than the synth sound. And the synth sound is pitched and the bass drum is just doing its own thing, doesn't have the volt per octave connected. But yeah. And it's all still clocked from this LFO. freeze. And so yeah, this is a basic sequencer operation. In the bottom there's also a quantizer, so each step can be quantized to notes, and on the screen you can also set which notes to quantize to with a tiny piano keyboard, so you can select which black and white keys you want it to quantize to. Either the sequence itself or a separate input. There's still one feature that we haven't discussed, and that's all the gray ones here. The gray input jacks. Going to unpatch a few things again.
Gray means?
Gray means CV.
Right.
Ah, yes. I haven't even mentioned it today yet, but we have color coded the whole Fenix with yellow, gray, and blue. Gray being CV, blue being gate, and yellow being audio. These are serving suggestions. They will, of course, connect to anything. You can connect any jack to any other jack, as long as you match input to output and don't connect outputs together. But we tried at least to get a consistent overview of what is usually the case that you want to do. In this case, each step has a CV input. And what it does is that if you reach that step and it has something plugged into it, it will use that CV level as its output for the sequence. It will get quantized for here, and it will just be output there. And if you have that plugged in, the knob becomes a level switch. So let me set up a very simple sequence here, all the way low for now.
Some questions about a single run stuff, so maybe you can set it up that way.
Sure. Let's take the reverb out again, and I make a simple envelope setup. Where should I take this from? Oh yeah, and I was going to connect this one to the LFO for the demo, and a gate cable, and I will clock this thing again from the LFO. A different LFO though. No, just take the clock. There's also a whole built-in clocking system here. You can either use a built-in clock, or you can just enter the beats per minute, or you can sync it to all kinds of MIDI, USB, or whatever you want. Right now it's just running an internal clock with a standard 4 to the floor subdivision scheme. You can also enter multipliers and subdivisions, everything, but yeah, manual. Let's see, what do I have here? I have no sound yet. Now, we have a triggering envelope that's doing stuff. Envelope controls the VCA, Sawtooth going in one, and I'm using the wrong channel. There. Now the missing cable is the pitch, longer one. So now there's no sequence going, because I have no sequence programmed in. Just remove all the doubles and the longs. So one note is going up because it's set to something else. The other one has the mystery cable in here.
Ooh.
So let's enable this one. Now every time it will be different.
Wrong knob. Wrong knob.
There.
Yay.
So now this knob. Now the first knob is a level factor or the level multiplier for the CV coming in, and every time it goes past that step, it will just take that signal and send it to the output instead of just directly the knob value. So you can make it play different melodies when it comes to different areas of the sequence. And they will all still be quantized to the same levels. So if I now take a wobbler, for instance, which does some complicated movements, I set it to, which one is this? 1, 2, 3, this one.
Love it's more.
And of course this also needs some effects, because all this dry stuff, well, it's making my mouth dry. Now for some delay.
Doing the shaky. Yeah.
Now for some freeze on delay. So yeah, that was the mystery grading feature on the sequencer.
There was also a question, but it's very menu heavy.
Menu heavy.
SoundFont's player.
Oh yeah, well there is one.
What is up with that?
It's built into the digital oscillator. I have no clue what kind of sounds I've loaded in there, but let's find out.
Okay. So
Well,
tell us what you're doing. Where are we going?
I'm unplugging stuff.
Right.
I'm keeping the envelope. I'm removing all my elbows and things. That's, while being lots of fun, it's a bit distracting for what we're about to discover. I'll also remove any delay. Still have my MIDI keyboard set up so I can easily trigger things. So I think the patch cables are winning from the tidy start we made. Okay. Nice. Step 1 for the SoundFont player is that you need to actually trigger it before it plays anything. So I'm going to use another output on the CV gate interface. There. And of course needs a pitch. I seem to have loaded some sort of piano. So what you're hearing now is the digital oscillator, which has 8 megabytes of internal storage, and you can upload standard SoundFont 2 files. By now it's a bit of an obscure file format, but it's one of the few available open standards for multi-samples, so you can have key splits and velocity layers and envelope information and some other stuff hidden in there. There's a few really nice open source, free to use, free to download editors for this stuff. Like I think this Polyphone was the one I used to make this bank. And you can put the whole Fenix into USB drive mode, and then when it's in that mode, you can drag and drop your SoundFont on there and go into the menu, say load SoundFont, and it will put it in there. And then you can have this as a bass sound or anything else really. In some modified version. Also a bunch of drum kits are in here. And drum kits and stuff get really fun when you play them with an arpeggiator. So you can do all kinds of things with this. And right now, of course, it sounds a bit tinny, and SoundFonts were sort of abandoned for being very tinny and not very feature rich. But in this case, you get to use it instead of a Sawtooth, so you can upload all kinds of other bass waveforms and interesting starting points from where you can start your synthesis, so you can have a bit more variety than just the usual 4 waveforms. And besides that, the digital oscillator has way more fun features, and I think, well, definitely, let's just try another one now. I think this answers the...
Can you CV the SoundFont sound selection?
Yes, you can.
Aha!
Also, you have 2 outputs, and each of the 2 outputs has its own sound selection. And the selection of sound 1 is CV controllable. Sound 2 is not CV controllable. But sound 1 has one extra CV control, which is sample offset. So if you want to do stuff like play an aim and break and do beat slicing, you can also CV control the second parameter and then use the sequencer to beat slice. Build interesting sounds that way. Or if you want to have things, a classic trick with samplers to make your drums sound slightly less samey all the time, you just add a bit of randomness every time you hit, so it starts at a different area in the sample and just adds a bit more life that way. But yeah, we try to spread wide with as many features as possible, so output 2 doesn't have the same feature set, so we could actually have the CV control extra for sound 1. Yeah. Anything else related to that? No. Somebody shakes no. So then, let's try an FM oscillator. Got back to where I was. Let's remove the reset. Envelope to the modulation of that. Guys, use the CV mixer to precondition the exact levels. Parameter 1 is now the FM amount of operator 1. It's a weird block of 2 operators and 1 carrier. The first operator, if I remember correctly, is free, and the relative pitch is controlled by parameter 2, and the third parameter is the level of the second operator, for which you can select the pitch ratio in the menu, so that's a fixed multiple. Change the FM amount from the same envelope. So yeah, of course, the more you know about FM, the more you know where the sweet spots are. You can get the usual ones in here with all the standard ratios. On the screen you can see exactly where you are. I can't see it from here because I'm not. But all the pitch ratios are also, there's a separate quantizer in there. How do we call that again? There was quantized operator 1. I think we also add a special quantizer thing for the second operator and the first operator. Also in the menu, there's a bunch of interesting options there.
Quantize operator 1 pitch. Is
Yeah.
that what you mean?
Yeah.
If you turn this on, an option in the menu, the FM oscillator will quantize the operator 1 pitch offset to the nearest semitone. We built this in to maintain a harmonic relation between the frequencies while using a CV into the parameter 2 input jack.
So let's try that one. Remove this one. This way it becomes a lot more controllable what's actually happening with parameter 1. So yeah, that's FM subsystem. Any questions on that one? Or is there
I don't think so.
no questions? So let's move on to the other. So this is the Sawtooth, I think. Yeah, we call this a Sawtooth. Sawish.
Sawish. This is sawish.
Yeah, Sawtooth. The Sawtooth is one of Laudi's big inventions. It's a phase shiftable and phase warpable Sawtooth, which has a very strange progression in its wave shape. The tiny icon is a reflection of what that shape can look like. It has some unusual controls. One of the more usual ones is that it has a built-in low pass.
What? Low pass is mid, right.
Right.
That one.
Oh wait, sorry. Yes. Yeah. Yes. So all the way up. Basic Sawtooth. Now the other bottom two. Now you tell me which one is which. Phase shift. Rotate.
The other way. Yeah, just turn it up.
Let's go a bit lower for this. So these two control the motion which it shifts and warbles itself. And you have to modulate them to get the nicest bits out. Let's see if I can do that. Again, parameter 2 in this case. I'll modulate parameter 2. Let's give it a wobbler instead. We're still listening to one oscillator only. Let's see if we can also modulate the other side. Maybe the dip. Besides the distorted Sawtooth, there's also the distorted pulse train. You can do similar tricks, but it has quite a different character to it. So yeah, I just pressed one button to go from to next note. Let's add some Waveguide to this, because we have more digital goodies hidden in here.
What is Waveguide anyway?
It's a simulation of a pipe, pretty much. It's something that guides a wave through it, and then either it reflects or it resonates, or and the way it reflects and resonates is usually determined by the shape of the ends and the material it's made of. So let's enable it and hear it.
Change the material.
are now producing so many low notes. I'm actually smelling the sawdust of the inside.
They're asking about pulse width modulation for Nick Bat.
Oh, of course. Yes.
What?
Let's give him some pulse width modulation, shall we?
Okay. Hey Nick.
Hello, Nick. How many pulse widths does he want modulated at the same time? There. Keep that one in, the wobler out, get the digital oscillator out. This is a
nice
bit.
one. Can we record that?
Oh, it is being recorded.
Yeah. On YouTube. Awesome sound.
Okay, we have a pulse. We have 3 pulses actually in the chord oscillator. And now let's modulate it. Also, I haven't mentioned these yet. These are our CV utilities in the CV utility section. These are precision adders and attenuverters, and you get 4 of them separate. Some of them have inverted output, some of them have 2 attenuverters. There's lots of stuff to mangle your signals.
All the utility built in.
Yep, all the utilities. Maybe too hard to hear with so many things going on already.
Just needs more bass.
Pulse width modulation there. There, modulated pulse width. So, pulse modulation. Manually. And automatic. Harmonic pulse modulation we can also do. Let's do harmonic pulse modulation. Instead of an LFO, I'll just take an extra oscillator. Take an output. Give it the same pitch. Does that conclude the pulse width modulation section?
Does now have a digital filter or vocoder.
Right.
Right.
Let's filter something digitally. Start with the Sawtooth from before. Remove all the stuff we're not using anymore. Stay within the color scheme of the cables for clarity. Digital filter in.
May not be, it's not super clear, I think, on screen that all the cables have plugs in the same yellow, gray, and blue. So that if you want, you can keep track of what kind of signal is going through your cables. Of course, on the inside, they're the exact
they're
same
just
cables. So if you want to ignore it, that's fine too.
So I'm setting the filter now to basic filter. Put the resonances down and nothing weird going on, no modulation. Let's put the arpeggio off. Low pass filter. Nice low pass. pass filter, but yeah, it's a low pass filter. With resonance. Can do very nice resonance too. Halfway resonance, more normal of course. But it can go really into saturated resonance and still sound nice. Then to conclude the low pass, it also has this weird extra knob here, which is the sparkle knob. I think we called it the sparkle knob in the end. And it is.
What are you in right now? The digital
the
filter?
digital filter, yes. Sparkle knob.
Let's see.
Manual is being looked up. The sparkle knob controls how the resonance peaks follow each other, because the low pass filter internally is actually 2 low pass filters, and each have their own resonance peaks. And in most digital filters, these go in perfect lockstep, which is quite boring compared to analog filters where nothing ever goes in lockstep. And this particularly characteristic, if you sort of exaggerate it and you put it under a knob and you allow the time control, you get this. Putting it way high now so you can hear it easily, putting the resonance really high, start very low, and I'm going to sweep up, and you probably hear that the filter takes a while to stabilize after I've stopped moving it. Maybe 1/10 of this setting would be what would be normal in a regular analog filter. So, but yeah, we're digital, so we can go all the way. So we added way more extreme version for people to play with. Which I think sounds more natural and pleasing and more fun. But it's entirely up to everybody playing with the Fenix to make their own conclusions. Then the other side of this particular mode is the high pass filter, which has well, the usual cutoff and resonance, open low pass, same deal, just very nice digital high pass filter. The upside from these being digital is that, of course, the frequencies are completely always in tune, and the frequency 1 and 2, so high pass and low pass, you can freely sequence. So if I, instead of the oscillator being tuned, I now go to the low pass filter. Let's put this one high. Right. Actually, put some resonance on this. Easily with the high pass and the low pass. Use this to make chord overtones and things. To facilitate this even further, we've added a whole bunch of different modes for the CV and gate interface to do things like note priority. You could, for instance, send the highest note to the filter, the lowest note to the oscillator, and the latest note to a different oscillator to build really complex interacting chord structures, even on a monophonic synthesizer. Or even if you want to, since it's 4 outputs, you could also build 4 separate voices out of the machine and play it like a polysynth with 4 asymmetric voices, which is an interesting thing to be doing.
So this is the dual filter?
Still the digital filter, dual filter mode.
Dual filter
yeah,
mode.
sorry, we're going left into MIDI modes, but this is just the digital filter basic mode. Now let's go to the vocal mode.
The vocoder.
No, the vocal mode, vocal filter,
Vocal.
formant filter.
Aha.
Let's give it something nice to filter. What would be nice to filter is a pulse trend from a digital oscillator. Let's actually modulate that. From A over. What? Oh, too loud. Sorry. Thought it was on auto gain. So yeah, vocal filter, you can set two vowels to morph from and to. You can set bend intensity. You can add a sort of automatic noise feed, so it gives you sort of noise plosives before and during or after based on your setting. See the manual. And yeah, of course you can CV control most of that stuff, so, which is what I've been doing, which is why you get the wah 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 wah. So, what else? Any
Some updates on our status with production, maybe?
Yeah.
How are we doing? What is happening?
Oh, we're so tired. No, we've been building.
Everybody
Phoenixes.
has a spa.
Yeah.
We can do it the weekend. No, it's great. It's great, but it's chaos.
It's great. It's not even chaos. It's just a lot of work, and we've been living inside manufacturing. Well, we've been Corona working from home. Well, we would have been working from home anyway, but we're now also working from home, and we have a house full of Fenix parts everywhere. We are almost done with the first 50. The first 25 have been shipped out. The next, I think, 10 have been completely quality control passed, and they're now waiting for final inspection and screen alignment, and then packing and shipping. Then the next 10 are already in the burn-in rack, and we have still a few in the repair stack that we need to fix up some minor details before they're allowed to go any further.
Yeah.
But that takes us to about 55, 60, I think. I'm not sure how far the numbers go now. Still waiting for parts for 6200. Those cases from panels should mostly arrive on Monday and further next week. Cases maybe a bit later.
All the electronics?
All the electronics are already here, already tested, already quality controlled and ready to go. Have been for a while. Everything else is here. We have mountains full of patch cables. We have all the backpacks and cable ties and everything else that's supposed to go in there is here. I show this one too. You'll have to show me if it's actually in the screen with the card. Well, yeah.
Oh no.
We have, for people that have earlier Fenixes, we also make these tiny banana plug converter boxes. Because we have made this mini jack yellow rack compatible. But of course, if you already have a Fenix 1, 2 and 3,
flip it to the side. The side view, you can see the beautiful bamboo work, which is the same bamboo as the sides of the Fenix.
Yeah, it's a very neat
light little.
Yeah, with little rubber feet, of course, little rubber feet enabled. Here, this is also going in there. Yeah. So we have the tiny converter box for if you want to integrate this with your banana system. So those we still, we also get more parts, and we're also making more of those. We're maybe even making an alternative form factor for some people that have requested this.
One of our future Fenix owners asked if he could have, instead of a box with 4 times this.
Yeah, 4 times the
fitting
size.
into a 19-inch rack.
Yes, so
we're gonna
the Fenix itself fits a 19-inch. Keep it on. It's 19-inch wide. You can remove the sides, and it's a 19-inch rack. And this particular customer wants to have a 19-inch rack with matching banana converter, so we're still building one of those, and maybe more if it turns out to be particularly if it turns out really well, we may maybe just make a few extra. What else are we doing?
What we're doing, we are just working really hard to get everything out the door.
Yes.
I was hoping in August.
Yes.
But it seems like the delay in the cases might mean that we're not going to make it. But we're trying really hard to have just all 100 done this month.
Of course, we're also preparing some surprises for Super Booth. We'll bring the Fenix, or maybe even more than one Fenix, and our usual module lineup, and a whole bunch of stuff that we're working on, plans and dreams and things.
We can do that too,
yeah.
But that's not Fenix
related. That's not for now.
There's another last question I think that we will do today. Can you show the chord oscillator? Zaire, who has a Fenix already, had trouble making his own chords.
Well, it's a bit on the menu side, but I can show it. Let's see, go to Chord Oscillator page. This is probably not visible at all.
Just say what you're doing.
Yeah. Let's make a sound with the Chord Oscillator first, so then we can hear what's going on. Chord Oscillator. No filter out, but the chord out.
Ooh, wow. Okay.
That was loud. This is now visible. I can't even see the indicator going. Okay. I'm in chord mode. And if I'm in chord mode, you can, in the chord page, see how the chords are set up. And you can also see how it moves between the chords live, which chord is actually playing. And if it's, you can also set if it jumps or interpolates. So the first one is now a jump, I think. So this is what that sounds like. So it jumps straight to the next one. And the next one is set to interpolate. So if I start here, you can hear it slide to the other chord. And you can change that here as well. If you go to, up and down, you can go onto each interval and between them to set snap or smooth to change that interpolation method. But let's edit a chord. I'm now in the first chord, I'm playing the first chord, and I'm in the first interval. So the chord oscillator is built from 3 oscillators. The first one is fixed to the incoming CV, and the second one and the third one are relative to the first one. And these relative pitches are what you can edit in this system. So now it's set to +8 and +4 semitones. So if I had a C, that would be 1, 2, 3, 4. That's it. E, 5, 6, 7, 8. Wait, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So this would not be a major, this would be something else. This is a C, D, E, F, G sharp. If I want to change the top one, I can edit it here with left and right buttons. Now the top one is +7, +8, +9, +10, +11, octave. And the other one is still in between, so I can press one down and edit that one, and now it's on +4. So we have bass note, we have 1 octave up, and we have one that's +4. And I can change that to a fifth, +5, +7, 7. Now if I set them both to 7, so we have the root note and +7 and +7, I can then use the Enter key to select a higher precision level for that offset. So I can add a tiny bit of drift to it to make a detune saw. So now we have root note +7 and +7.2 as a chord. So this way you can select how far the offsets are and then build up a bunch of chords, and then with the chord knob you can then still select. I hope that clears things a bit up.
Don't know yet.
Don't know yet. So there's 8 chords you can build this way, or 9 even, but the 9th one is a bit special in that you can also make it follow your last played MIDI chords. That is MIDI to 9, it's all the way down there somewhere. So
there's a lot of menuing.
Menuing, yeah, chord oscillator editing is sadly a lot of menuing.
But then you just play with them.
Yeah. So yeah, still tons of stuff we haven't even touched yet. I think somebody asked why the Fenix was unique. We also had to answer that one. The biggest thing is that it's so big. It has everything.
It has all the things.
And it has at least a version that we think is very much complete for what it is. So if, any features you might expect from a delay line are of course in delay line. The things we haven't touched yet is it can be tempo synced to the sequencer or to MIDI or to whatever. It can also be played card plus strong style, where you have 1/4 per octave tuning on the delay line. Same for the Waveguide. The digital filter vocoder haven't even set up yet. There's lots of extreme tracks in there. The filters, we have odd topologies. They're all from different kinds. What? Oh yes, we have the case microphone. You can actually play the device itself if you're so inclined. With which you can do all kinds of crazy noises.
More questions about how many chords can you set and select with the chord knob?
9.
9. And can you calibrate those oscillators?
Yes, if they're really completely untunable, you can calibrate them.
Okay.
But then you have to open the Fenix, and there's trimmer pots for that.
And we would not really recommend you do that.
It should not be necessary.
It should not be necessary. If it actually, maybe if it had too much vibration in transport and the trimmer went off, then maybe, but probably not.
Okay.
But yeah, that's if you have really lots of trouble, then we should probably set up a video call at some point and take a look at that with you.
Right. Tim really wants you to touch it.
It's not doing lots of feedbacking yet. Let's see.
Yeah, slap it.
Yeah. What is the weight? About 13 kilos. Well, completely packed, it's 13 kilos.
Yeah, completely packed at 13 kilos. This is more like 6, 7,
Yeah.
10. So, yeah, lots of extra. The cables are also very heavy.
Cables are heavy.
Power brick is heavy.
Just the instrument, I think, is 8.
Yeah.
Hitting it like a spring reverb.
Then of course also use this.
Use that as a trigger.
So yeah, we tried. Yeah, the thing is unique for its completeness. It's unique for its execution level. It's unique for its scale. And
It's the story behind it.
the story behind
story
it.
that's before this instrument.
Yeah, the integration, the overall design, everything follows the same design language. It's consistent to the last jack. It
Can
tries.
you turn it to the side? 'Cause that is also something
I
very
can
different from the 2, for example.
It's. I'm not sure how well this is visible. So it's not very thick. It comes in its own little travel case. A little travel case. It makes me look like a furniture high schooler if I have it on my back, but it comes in a neat case. Any other unique selling points?
I don't know. How sensitive is the mic? Would you need to worry about any feedback?
Yes. But of course you can sort of turn it down. But it is very sensitive. It also it's not very much meant to be like a vocal microphone or an instrument microphone. It's really an effect and percussive thing. It's even mostly a contact microphone. So if it's in the studio and I'm just jumping up and down on the ground, it will pick it up and you can use it to trigger things. So it's actually kind of fun to play with, just jumping, and the bass drum kicks whenever you hit the ground.
Do we have any Fenix V plans? No, we don't.
No, there are some plans, but it's a more meta plan because we
in a decade give it to the next generation.
Yes, if somebody else comes along and becomes the next great synthesizer designer or whatever, or thinks they might become eventually, and I think they can do a great job at making a 5, we'll of course hand them all the plans and they get to make Fenix 5 or 6 or 7. Who knows what has happened in 10 years. But yeah, I think we should keep this tradition going, that at some point the Fenix project will no longer be ours and we'll just move onwards.
So, yeah, my point with turning it around is it's really thin. It's in the backpack, it's quite easy to carry actually. And since it's, you know, kind of everything, or we hope that it's everything, this might be a synthesizer on the go.
It's a synthesizer you'll bring everywhere because it's the one thing you want to bring everywhere. So we allow you to bring it everywhere by making it small enough to do so. But yeah, that's maybe up
and
to
giving
people.
you a backpack that makes you look like a teenager.
Yes. So yeah, I think that concludes our YouTube session for today.
Yes. We maybe will be doing this again in a
Probably.
week or in 2 weeks. As more and more Fenixes get out there and more people can watch this because they have one and hopefully have some questions that we can help them with, or have some ideas that we can then show.
Yep. Questions always welcome. Like and subscribe, all the usual crap.
Yes, yes,
Hit
yes.
that bell.
We're also on the Instagrams where I
Yeah.
regularly post pictures about the knee-deep making of Phoenixes that's happening right now.
We have a Discord channel for all the rocket science related things. For Phoenix customers specifically, we have a hidden Discord channel where we release things. Well, people don't always.
Okay,
Well, we take care of people that have a Phoenix. That's sort of the thing.
that's the idea.
Yeah. So yeah, that's it for today. Can we hit a stop button somewhere?
It is the stop. Bye. Good night.
Cheers.
Ciao. Thank you.
Arrivederci.